So first and foremost, we are delighted to host our panelist and moderator for Vox Populi 2023, Mr. Sandeep Magavi, GIC Learning Leader, Growth Platforms and Industry, IBM. Mr. Magavi is an esteemed alumnus of the prestigious Indian Institute of Management, Kashipur, from where he holds his qualification in the executive program of the same, specializing in marketing analytics. Mr. Magavi is an industry expert in talent transformation and knowledge management, having been an integral part of IBM's learning and knowledge strategy for 16 plus years, where he leads functions to enable strategic capabilities and future skilling across IBM's global delivery centers worldwide. Mr. Magavi's focus is on engaging with diverse people and leveraging unique individual potential, which helps accelerate the ability to optimize and operationalize business models more effectively. He is also engaged in actively promoting industry-academia collaboration with universities, apart from driving community give back as a board member of Shraddha Sansthan, an NGO, for the last 20 years. He also holds a multifaceted experience of more than 23 years across strategy, global delivery, people and program management, and talent development, to name a few. We're extremely delighted to have you on board our panel today, sir. Thank you for being a part of Vox Populi 2023.
Thank you.
Next up, I would like to introduce to you Mr. Ganesh S., Global Chief Human Resource Officers, Emeritus and Eruditus. Mr. Ganesh S. is a distinguished alumnus of XIME, Bangalore. He is an established HR professional with over 20 years of rich experience in managing and setting up global teams, startups, analytics and innovation labs, and driving cultural transformational initiatives across geographies. As the Global Chief Human Resource Officers at Emeritus, his HR team is based out of India, the US, the UK, Mexico, Brazil, Singapore, and China, partnering with a nearly 2,000 plus strong global team across 25 plus countries, delivering a $500 million plus revenue business. Previously, Mr. Ganesh worked with Citi as head of HR for Citi Global Decision Management Center India and had been head of HR functions for HSBC Bank Limited for East and South India. He has also worked with Bharti Airtel and Tata Consultancy Services. Mr. Ganesh was recently recognized as one of Asia's 100 Power HR leaders by White Page International. Thank you so much, sir, for your esteemed presence. On behalf of IIT Kanpur, we are very delighted to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much.
Next up, we would like to introduce to you Mr. Sarajit Poddar, Global Leader of People Analytics at Ericsson, a world leader in the information and communications technology industry. Mr. Poddar is an MBA from XLRI Jamshedpur, a premier management institute in India. Mr. Poddar joined Ericsson in Singapore in 2013, where he works with the global leadership team to implement processes and practices in people analytics. Currently, he is leading data engineering, data governance, people analytics, and data science landscape. Previously, he also led the strategic and tactical workforce planning and analytics portfolio for Southeast Asia and Oceania region. Before working at Ericsson, Mr. Poddar was a management consultant with Deloitte and several other consulting firms. Over 21 years, he helped to lead organizations in APAC, implementing solutions to improve their HR strategy, HR delivery model, and HR processes and systems. He brings a wealth of knowledge about end-to-end HR practices. Together with this consulting approach and data science knowledge, he drives value in an organization through people analytics. Sir, thank you for being a part of Vox Populi 2023. The IIT Kanpur family feels extremely honored to have you here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next up, we would like to introduce Mr. Chandra Mohan, Head of Employee Relations, Del Monte Foods India Limited. Mr. Mohan is a Master's in Human Resource Management from XLRI Jamshedpur. Accredited as an ambitious and passionate professional, Mr. Chandra Mohan has over 20 years of experience at the fore of many organizations, such as Group for Securitas Garden Limited, TVS Group, Sanmar Group, Kansai Nerolac Paints, and presently with Del Monte Foods Private Limited. He has been recognized throughout his career, functioning towards improving processes with focus on organizational and employee success. An HR business partner known for fruitfully collaborating with leadership, he has also made valuable addition to businesses by implementing sustainable HR policies, SOPs, T&Ds, and change and OD initiatives. He holds a distinction in improving business returns by innovating human capital with human intellectual resources needed to negotiate ambiguity and paradox. Mr. Mohan also specializes in developing and retaining the best talent to capacitate businesses for sustainable growth and profitability. He was recently recognized as the Best HR Leader 2022 by FICCI and IIM. Sir, we are very fortunate to have you here with us today. Thank you for being a part of Vox Populi 2023.
Thank you.
Next up, we are proud to host our next panelist of Vox Populi 2023, Mrs. Anshula Verma, Director and National Head, Talent Acquisition at EY. Ms. Verma is an esteemed alumnus of the Academy of Management Studies, Dehradun. Ms. Verma is a senior talent acquisition leader with over 23 years of experience in the areas of talent acquisition, talent management, and talent strategy. She has led high-growth recruitment teams for some of the most innovative strategic consulting and technology companies, including Mphasis, Ericsson, Agile Technologies, and EY. Ms. Verma specializes in TA transformation, creating high-growth strategies, and implementing systems and processes that increase efficiency and experience for candidates and hiring managers. She thrives on building world-class teams to evolve talent acquisition and enable the workforce of the future. Ma'am, thank you for your presence. We are honored to have you amidst us today.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here.
Thank you, ma'am.
We also have with us today Ms. Jayanthi Jagannath, the Chief Human Resource Officer, KNS Partners. Ms. Jayanthi is an award-winning HR leader heading the talent function as CHRO with the leading IP law firm, KNS Partners. With a focus on HR transformation, OD intervention, and learning initiatives, she's a trained leadership coach focusing on talent management. She has anchored and led the HR function in different capacities at Nucleus Software, Exchanging, Fiserv, Deloitte, and Shardula Merchant. She has handled the people agenda starting from startups to large workforces. She is also very active in academic forums and industry. Apart from this, she has also anchored and led a social impact organization, Abhit, focusing on rural women's livelihood, self-esteem, and equity. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your benign presence. We are very, very honored to have you with us today.
Now, without further delay, I would like to request Mr. Sandeep Magavi to kickstart the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Som. Firstly, very happy to be here, and I can say for sure that on behalf of all my friends here as part of the panel, that we're extremely delighted to be here, part of Vox Populi 2023, and we hope to share a lot of great insights that we've gotten over the years with the larger population, the larger students here. So having said that, I just wanted to kind of, like I mentioned to the coordinators yesterday, for the students, great if we can have questions from y'all as well, and we can address those, because we can address very specific questions from y'all. It's more for y'all that we've taken time and come here. Apart from, of course, learning from each other as well. It's a wealth of experience here. So I myself looking forward to learn a lot from everyone here, apart from moderating the session. Having said that, let's just deep dive into the topic of today. But I would kind of call it out more as people engagement and talent retention, right? That's just my take. Having said that, a couple of pointers. With every industrial revolution, we've seen different facets of people, process, and technology that have come into play. So is the case with this new industrial revolution, with Industry 4.0 as well. That obviously continues. The three pillars of people, process, and technology definitely continues, but the focus being a lot more on the people aspect than ever before. Technology absolutely is a necessity. It's an enabler, but people more important than ever before. So having said that, I'd like to quickly get into getting to know some of more insights from our leaders here. So Jayanthi, your take in terms of how do you think from an industry standpoint? Of course, like I mentioned, and like we all agree, the people aspect of it is at the highest peak at the moment than ever before. How do organizations see it? How does the management see it? And how are we recognizing this fact and this factor?
Thanks, Sandeep, and thanks for IIT Kanpur for
having brought this platform for all of us to discuss. Typically, if you actually look at what's been happening around, certainly people has been the foremost, aspect in this whole arena. We all know what's been happening with all the, during pandemic, post-pandemic. So we heard about all the issues of moonlighting. So let's talk about, so he talked about moonlighting with the kind of hybrid of remote working which happened. And then this industry talk about moonlighting, and then moonlighting after that came the silent quitting. So all of us are aware of what's been happening in the environment. And after the silent quitting, we are actually talking about now rage application. So there are different terms which are actually just evolving. And why is it all happening? Typically, if you actually look at it, is that we have been actually seeing that after especially the pandemic and during pandemic, you look at the kind of the frustration levels which came in, and people started looking at what's the purpose of their own lives, and of course all of these factors brought in the kind of behavior that we could see from people. And all the more currently what we are seeing is, especially being part of a law firm, it's very different. Now, all of you guys must be thinking, what's the kind of talent engagement or talent practices that we are saying in a law firm? So we are a very different kind of an organization as far as the law firm is concerned, because we are an IP, intellectual property law firm, where we have combination of lawyers, attorneys, and domain experts, so technology, chem pharma, biosciences, with the legal aspect. So for us, we've never seen attrition. Retentions have been very good. And last year was the first time, the year before last, that we actually saw attrition happening for us. Never ever have it happen. So that's a kind of because it's a very close set of pool, and people have been working here for more than a decade, I would say, and that's where we looked at what is it that which is going to be utmost important for all of us. So as I say that, of course, we can talk about the kind of strategies that we have sort of built in, but this is the most important aspect that we've been seeing, because all of this, we've been talking about the business part of it, the process part of it, and the people aspect came in most important at this part of it. When we saw a lot of people doing, applying left, right, and center, even if, and it's more about how, people are anticipating the looming recession coming in. And so everybody wants to just apply, even if they've never applied earlier. So I would say that's the kind of scenario that we are in currently. I hope I sort of answered some part of what you were looking at, Sandeep. But this is something which is utmost on our minds right now. So from moonlighting to silent quitting, rage application, this is the kind of life cycle that we're seeing right now. So people becoming the most important aspect. So of course, we certainly are realizing is the retention is the biggest, is the new recruitment. So better to retain people, look at the attrition issues. So because the kind of people that we look at hiring, it's not going to be easy for us. So that's the kind of focus that we have right now.
Thank you for that, Jayanthi. I think you brought up very interesting points in terms of, the terms that have come into play as well, right? It's only because of, to a large extent, I would think from a magnitude standpoint, I mean, all of these existed, even before the pandemic. But I think there's a certain sense of urgency because of the magnitude that has actually, gone up in the last couple of years. So we do have them bracketed now a lot more than before, primarily because of the people focus much more than ever before. Picking on your point with respect to attrition, Anshula, question to you in terms of, from what you look at EY in terms of the attrition part of it. I would call that out as, one is aspirational, right? maybe more from a monetary standpoint, position, so on and so forth. We all see that day in and day out in our industry. But the other one is also inspirational in terms of people wanting to do that, wanting to do something differently. To be honest with you, even taking a step back, more from a conversation point of view for the larger group, we all have our point of view in terms of moonlighting and how right or wrong it is, and we'll perhaps delve a little into that a little later. But a lot of it, I would think, or rather some of it could also be inspirational and not just aspirational or from monetary standpoint. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on what you see it from an attrition standpoint, and how would you link the two?
Well, I like the terms, Sandeep, aspirational and inspirational, to start with. So I come from a consulting, management consulting industry, and I've spent about 12, 13 years with EY now. So I've started understanding the nuances of Big Fours and how Big Fours operate. I think one thing which is unique about management consulting firms is that we don't sell products. People are the products, people, their knowledge. So it's a knowledge industry, right? So that's why it is important for us to have people who are very, very well versed and abreast with what is happening in industry, because it's their credibility that will bring business on the table. So from that standpoint, I think is extremely important for us, and it was always extremely important for management consulting firms to invest in people, irrespective of what is happening right now. It was always the trend to invest in people because that's what brings you revenue. Now, what is happening in the last 2 years is phenomenal and one of a kind. One of a kind because of whatever the industry has seen and no one has seen before. So it's unprecedented. And phenomenal because it just pushed us so much, to the corner that all the possible creativity that anyone could have ever put in terms of retaining your people, doing better things for your people, putting them in the center of everything, I don't think we would have ever done that. Not that, industry was taking people for granted. So right from, taking care of their aspiration, which is their well-being, their career pathing, their making their stay comfortable, giving them the visibility to, or enhancing their learning, and then giving them visibility to their growth in the organization, to managing their compensation. Benchmarking studies used to be an annual affair, and sometimes you won't even do it for 2 to 3 years in a row. And now you do it every 6 months, and you do it professionally. Now that is something you're doing because you know that you will lose your best people if you're not at par with the industry. So we've done all of that. In terms of inspiration, I think there's one thing that we've done differently, and I'm trying not to talk about the cliched things that everybody knows. We have started paying more attention to the exit interviews. So when the person is leaving, and especially when people are leaving within 1 year of joining, now that's a big giveaway to say, why would you lose a person in 1 year? The person would have joined you with certain aspiration, which you could not fulfill. And those are the insights that we then put up, in our strategies going forward. Whether it is on the comment is on the culture, the comment is on the acclimatization to the role, the comment is on my manager is not good, my compensation, my role was not matching, there's a mismatch there, I made a wrong decision, the environment is aggressive, the client facing role has high pressure, and I don't want to do that. Or even if they are subtle, reasons saying I'm getting married, or I'm relocating, or I now, want to plan my family. And that's why I feel that at a manager level, I may not be able to manage the work pressure. Now, these are the times, moments when you as an organization can actually hold hands and give them confidence to say, we will take care of you. You don't have to feel that because there is certain personal development that's going to happen in your life, you can't work or you have to quit. And that's where you make bonds. So both aspirational and inspirational bonds, if you're able to understand the need of individuals, I think we have seen that work in EY. Sandeep.
Great. I think understanding the needs of the individual. That's a very key point that you actually mentioned, and it's very important. I would think, of course, it goes down to the manager level, much more than the leadership, of course, who are there setting a governance in place. Goes down to a manager level as well to be able to understand, those gaps that we can perhaps fill. Not all of it can be, whether it's aspirational or inspirational across organizations and industries. We can't obviously close all the gaps, but to a large extent it does lie with either the manager or the leadership, and you mentioned that very rightly, about understanding the specific needs which we can try and fill in. So thanks for that, Anshula. Sarajit, over to you. Picking on that point, and relating it to skill, primarily because you being from Ericsson and more from a technology perspective, how would you link, and or from your experience, what have you seen, skill development or talent development as related to retention, from your own experience? I mean, or have you seen the other way around as well, where even if you go back to the aspirational part of it that I just mentioned, or Anshula just spoke about, from a specific skilling standpoint, I'm sorry, how would you link that back to either the retention or attrition, however you would call that out?
That's an excellent point. Thanks, Sandeep, and thanks, esteemed panel members, and thanks, Vox Populi, for giving me the privilege to speak here. So, building upon the comments made by Jayanthi and Anshula, and you, Sandeep, you happened to mention people, process, and technology, and how the revolution, industrial revolution, is putting extra emphasis on people. Right, and I'll touch upon the skill in a moment, but there was a time when people used to focus on how to optimize your processes and technology, your machines, your logistics, right? But with improvement in the ways of optimization, and now with AI, there are ways to optimize things, your processes and technology. So they are no longer a competitive advantage of companies, but you cannot optimize people, right? People come with their own aspirations, their own purpose, with which they stick around, they perform, and engagement plays an important part in the organization. So if they see a purpose in the organization, they stick around, even if, let's say, the situation is not favorable, right? And they don't leave the organization and join somewhere else just because they get a better pay or something. Now, employees development is part of it, because if I see that the employee is the company is conscious about my development, and why the company must be conscious about my development from an organization standpoint, it must be because it is business, right? I mean, we are in an industry, telecommunication, information and technology, where every 6 months the focus on what we should be doing shifts. We are talking about new technology, right? And if the organization is not thinking about building skills in-house, so what it would mean that after 6 months or 1 year, about 10%, 15% of our workforce is not adequately skilled to perform the business that we would have at that point, right? Which means that we have to acquire the skill from outside, and we have to let go these people. So this is a very, very bad business, because when people leave, because they don't see that the organization, they don't have a place in the organization, from an employer branding standpoint, it's bad. We in a scarce talent market, we cannot attract good talent when they see that the organization is callous about their development, their future, right? And we would see higher attrition when people don't find a purpose, they don't foresee that they would be still engaged by the company, and the organization is actually thinking about their skill development. Having said that, skills is a very fuzzy area. Why? Because those who have worked in L&D function, skills development function, they would know that we don't have or it is very hard to define what a skill is, because sometimes a person does a job because he has the skill, and he has the inspiration or aspiration to perform well in that so that he can acquire more skill in that subject, or sometimes people do a job because they want to acquire new things, right? And skills, competencies, behavioral competencies, and personal attitude, a lot of things goes inside that. So what we are trying to do is that to define what skill is, and to define a skills taxonomy. Like many organizations of our size, we have evolved to a stage where we have businesses, let's say sales, within the organization, sales, delivery, project management, R&D, they have their own skills catalog, right? And that poses a big challenge because, people, when they move around, the definition of what project management is, I'm just taking an example, it's a little different depending on who uses it, right? So we want to come up, we are working towards come up with a global level skills taxonomy so that we have a clear definition of what skills we are measuring, what it means, and how do we know that, a person has acquired that or not? How do we test it, right? And based on that, we envision that we will have a uniform way of, measuring skills gaps, and then developing people based on what they want in future. And of course, it goes hand in hand with people's preferences, what they want, their own career path, right? But there must be a framework in which they can be, they can be guided towards acquiring new skills. And of course, people have skills recorded in multiple systems in the organization, multiple places in their CVs, in their external profile, in LinkedIn, in several other places, right? Consolidating the skills from several places is a big challenge. And we are working with our, data science and other teams in the organization to see that, how to consolidate all of them in one place, right? So that we can make sense of, who has what, how much is the gap, and we think about, how to fulfill the gap.
Great.
That's all for
think
me,
I'm having
Sandeep.
a little bit of technical challenges here. Are you able to hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir,
yeah.
we can hear you.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, you made an interesting point, Sarajit, on the purpose part, and very true. I completely agree with you. Let me go off video. I think it's better because I'm getting disconnected here. Just a moment, please. Okay. Yeah. To repeat myself, Sarajit, I think very interesting point that you made about purpose. I really love that point, primarily because there are values and purpose as well built around a lot of the skilling or development aspect of people. And you brought that out very beautifully, I would say. Makes me, to your other point in terms of people actually skilling up, goes to a great quote that I can think of by Aristotle about, for the things that we learn by doing them, we learn by doing them. So, it's an important one that kind of goes back to purpose as well in one way or the other. Picking on that one, Ganesh, what you just want, I know, from the organization you represent is into executive education as well. Though, of course, you may or may not be directly involved from a curriculum standpoint, but I had a question from there on what you would have for your own execs. How much of, over a period of time, over the last couple of years, because we've seen a lot of people change or aspirational and inspirational changes in our entire industry. How have you tweaked, or how have you all tweaked your approach towards exec education for your own execs, or even for your clients and your customers, in terms of imbibing the purpose and the values, because that's exactly what they're going to take back into their organizations as well?
Thanks, Sandeep. And first of all, thanks to IIT Kanpur and Vox Populi for inviting me, and also all the other esteemed people in the panel. So thank you so much for accommodating me here. Yeah, interesting, Sandeep. So we are a startup, and therefore purpose is the heart of what everything we do. We don't have a brand. We don't have the calling that people, that a lot of other companies have, whether it is with regards to, acquisition of talent or retention of talent. So it's got to be the sole reason why a person would stick with us or engage with us has to be the purpose. And we try to bring that into every meeting that we get into. We say, what's the impact that we bring to our learners? We have got 250,000 learners across the globe. So we talk about that, and I think that inspires or keeps inspiring people like at least me and most of the people who are there in the organization. So I think that's very, very, very key to what we are and what we do. But just to your question, right? What are companies doing, or what are we doing to bring this up? So look, the education or the edtech scene actually in the last 1.5 years exploded with opportunities, exploded with demand, and now it's kind of getting tapered. But what's staying constant is I think people wanting to pick up new skills, or understanding importance of things that Mr. Sarajit actually spoke about data, about AI, about making decisions using data, right? I think that's key to it. And everything is, a lot of these trainings, a lot of people who actually pick trainings are around this. So whether it is data science, whether it is about making, so they're into executive education. So they would have completed, say, about 4 or 5 years before they actually pick a course. They don't pick our courses for jumping into the new job. They pick the courses for a long-standing legacy that they want to build for themselves. So I think that's one important aspect. So they want to shift from being probably a person who's emotionally driven, who's seen it by looking at it, who's seen it by working through it, etc., trial and error, to becoming very, very, structured about his, her, or their approach in terms of making decisions. That's one. The second thing is, I think people are picking up new age skills, things like sustainability. People relate themselves to building a world which will be there for future generations, for their progeny, etc. So they believe that they've got to be equipped enough to create, or they feel responsible enough to create a world around themselves which is very sustainable, which is very pervasive. So I think that's all the other aspect. And our company is no different from that. So we do believe in both these aspects. We do believe in we believe that education is one way, and it's a great leveler, of course, but we also believe that education is one way in which we can make this world a better place. And therefore, we bring purpose to everything that we do every day, day out, day in. Our schools, which are our partners, are kind of thinking the same way. They also churn out courses or bring out curricula, which is in line to what the world demands today. And of course, our students who actually are executives who pick up courses are very much in the line as far as picking up skills, which either align, making strategic shifts in terms of how they're thinking and how they do work, or making the world a better place. So I think these are the three aspects which, for us, make the difference, Sarajit. I hope I've answered your question. You're on mute.
Thank you, Ganesh. Yes, absolutely. And I just wanted to kind of get more insights into how you're actually looking at that. Chandramohan, over to you, because, from an employee engagement perspective, I mean, you represent one of the most amongst all of us here in this particular gathering. It's the most dynamic industry that you represent, right? The retail industry. From a retention perspective, how has your life changed over the last couple of years? What would you do differently now in 2022, 23 right now versus what you would have done perhaps 2019, 2020?
Yes, Sandeep. Actually, this 2020 to 23, even till now, it's a great challenge for us being an FMCG industry, because we completely transformed. Even the way of thinking, way of working, way of dealing with people was completely transformed. It was challenged. Why? Because actually we as a HR, we were handling three segments of people. One is a manufacturing sector, where there is a group of people, because even in 2020, even a single day during this pandemic, we have not closed our factory. I think March 2020, an announcement has came from the government. 25th onwards, we were starting the factory. It took one day to get permission from the government, and being a FMCG industry, we started running. So where the trust, creating a trust among the factory employees was a big challenge. Because people feel if you could see, all the industries were closed, everybody were working from home. But whereas FMCG, a group of people alone, used to come to work, where it was a big challenge, where we want to create an emotional bonding with families and with the employees, with the organization, was a big challenge for us. And there is another segment of people in corporate who sits from home and they will be working, and another segment of people who are in sales, who were all in feet on street, who were in the market. If you could see at Del Monte, we were various segment of business. We have B2B, business to business, business to customer, e-com and export. There were a lot of challenges, this is the time where even our business have transformed, because even if you could see Del Monte, before pandemic, 60% of our business was into B2B. We were not much into B2C. And not into e-com also. But when the pandemic comes, when all the restaurants have closed, all the shopping malls, everything was closed, the business obviously, we were put into soup. So then we concentrated more on e-com business, and after that, the management itself have taken a decision, we need to give more concentration on B2C. So after this pandemic, what happened was, pandemic was over. Once we came back to work, we found a lot of attrition, because a lot of market has opened. People were getting a lot of offers. So people are starting moving. At the same time, we got a challenge of transforming our business to B2B to B2C. So I have a huge number of people in sales who are handling B2B, where our management is not interested to send them home, because somehow we have to reskill these people, we have to upskill these people, and we have to make them to get into B2C market, because in B2B you deal with direct to the client or to the customer, but whereas in B2C you deal with distributors. Here the application of product knowledge is more, but whereas here the sales skill is more. So obviously, we craft out a separate learning a training session for the people who are in B2B, and we train them and we reskilled and upskilled them to move towards B2C market, which was one major challenge. At the same time, taking care of people in the manufacturing sector also was a big challenge for us, because they worked during the pandemic, even they sacrificed their life. Even we lost some of our employees also while coming to work. So that was an emotional connect where we have to take, because even we have a unionized sector in the plant. So handling an IR and employee relations was another challenge. So even in this scenario, even if you could see in 2020-21, even my attrition was moved once after back to normal. Even my 21-22, my attrition was about around 32%, even though we are a very good paymasters and we were taking care of people very well. And even then also we have a lot of engagement practice also, but even though we were not able to retain the people, because getting a best fit also was a challenge for us. At the same time, retain the critical talents also was a big challenge. So, and then we came up with a lot of other, as Anshula has told, benchmarking with salary, compensation, and giving retainer bonus to the people, and a lot of things we executed, and we started retaining people, speaking to the people, having more connect with people, looking at performance and trust in an equal way, because we required a good performer with trust towards the organization. Was the challenge, and we somehow we reduce the attritions and we retain people on engagement process, what we have done. I'll discuss with you on later aspects, this is how the scenario was in this past 3 years which we faced and we came across.
Great insights, Chandramohan. I think, like I said, very dynamic area, a very dynamic industry, as compared to all of us, and fantastic insights in terms of how you actually manage that part. There is a question on the chat window from the students, and I think that's the most appropriate for you, Chandramohan, primarily because you're from the FMCG sector. The question is, there's a constant fear in the blue collar job market about technology, eating up to jobs. So what is it that organizations across the board, not just yours, but in your industry, how are you looking at addressing that particular issue, and how is there anything that we're doing to kind of bridge that particular gap in terms of skill, if there are, and the perception as well?
Actually, to me, tech and touch are two flip sides of coins. Like, we to us, technology also important. Even at the same time, human intervention is also very important. It's like, it cannot, technology, like, can replace the human 100%, which is not possible. So even I think now we move from 4.0 to 5.0, where intervention of both human and technology is going to play a major role. That's how it is. On HR perspective, yes, we came up with a lot of technological improvements. Even from my hiring till the exit, even my human intervention is become low. Like, even sourcing of candidates, but at the same time, interview is very important to understand the persons to right fit. It's also very important. But at the same time, since certain areas we introduced technology, for example, on employee engagement, because after this pandemic, we were showing more importance on assessing the mood score of employees, because once in a 6 months, we used to understand the mood score of each and every individual. So about my work, about my boss, about my career work, about my career growth, about my colleague, about my culture, about my environment, all this. There are certain set of questions which we have a AI-based chat box, like, which used to interact with people and give us an analytical data about the mood score of each and every individual, band-wise, department-wise, which helped us to understand the people. Even I don't feel like, it is not possible for me to connect with each and every individual once in 6 months with having 1,500 employees, which is not possible. But whereas technology played a major role to identify the mood score of people, which helped me to bring a good culture in the organization.
Great, fantastic point. I think, and I'm sure it helped address the question from the student, but just one more point to that, to whoever posted this question. Well, I wouldn't really, segment that fear only for the blue collar job market alone. That fear exists across the board, right? You could discuss, we could debate the magnitude, fair enough, but that fear exists across the industry because even with automation coming in, we do have a lot of fear in the white collar job market, even in the IT space as well, even in the technology space, about, hey, where is it that we are drawing the line between technology and people? Where are those gaps there that I have as an individual to be able to make sure I'm able to retain my job at a point in time? So those fears absolutely exist across the industry, in all of us, across the board at every level, I would say, not just at an entry level, but across the board. Having said that, your skilling and your reskilling or your future skilling, as well as your behavioral change and in terms of having a growth mindset, that obviously is going to help everybody. Again, to repeat myself, across the board, it could be me here. It could be Chandramohan, it could be Anshula, Ganesh, as well as Sarajit. That applies to all of us, and it applies to everybody out there in the job market. The fear exists, and the need exists as well, and the requirement for us to be able to see ahead, have a growth mindset, and bring ourselves up to speed in terms of being right out there in the front line to be able to manage it.
And I
Anshula,
also
one question.
believe, sorry,
Yeah,
Sandeep, but
sorry.
just had a very quick thought when I was Chandramohan was talking about this. See, it is not about technology taking away or we need to upgrade ourselves. Of course, that's a given. But I'm saying, you remember a few years ago, maybe a decade ago or something, we used to have these lift men, people who would sit in the lift and they would just not do anything. They will just sit in the lift. And when you enter the lift in a mall area or any office area, they will just press the button for various floors where you need to go. Now, no rocket science, right? Anybody can do that. I know which floor I have to go. I'll go and just press the button, and yet you have those liftmen, because people in India were not used to of having traveled in lifts on a daily basis, so they were nervous and they didn't know how to operate that, and that's why we had a job like a lift man, and it stayed for quite a number of years. And today we have, and back then 10 years ago, would I have ever imagined that we would have something like a Uber Moto? So you would have a profession where you can be a two-wheeler driver and earning out of it. Or you would be a delivery person attached to a Zomato or a Zip or whatever these Dunzos and all, and you would be delivering, and that's a profession. And you can earn your living out of it. So I think it is profession replacing another profession. And as long as that transaction is happening in the commercial market, we are safe. We are all safe. We will be taken care of. We'll be able to earn our living. And of course, upgradation is absolutely important. We need to continue to upgrade ourselves. But will there be dearth of jobs? I don't think so, the way we are going.
So I would like to add.
Added to this, Sandeep, in manufacturing sector, just when you talk about blue collar work, if you take an industry, there are we hire a certain level of people. See, for operating machines, you have an expertise which I cannot take them out, or we cannot, which is required even to operate machines is required. But at the same time, I hire a lot of contractual labor, gig workers, a lot of other trainees whom they are coming in, which is for a shortened period. They will be for 3 years. If you take another scheme like NEEM or NAPS, a lot of schemes are there, which created by the government. They are talking about employability, which I don't feel it is not an employability. It's create an experience in employability, because we are not going to give them a continuous job. So now people start hiring more. Even if you could see, there are a lot of industries with 200 or 300 odd people who are permanent, and whereas you have around 700 to 800 people in contractual as a contractual labor or gig workers or as a trainees, because it's all temporary workers where these people have even anytime they can be sent out also, where the law provides it, and there is no protection because they are not enrolled. But whereas on technology part, for running a machines, we need an expertise where there is no job fair for these people. There is no point of they have 100%. They have a job, and there is no any attrition, and there is no fear for the job. There is a lot of other people's like contractual gig workers where they lose a job. That's how the market is now.
So I would like to add 2
points. Skill is the key point that we're actually talking about here, irrespective of the industry or the level. Fair enough. Sarajit, I know you had a point to make. Please go ahead.
Yeah, just 2 points. So I think from an organization standpoint, there would be always someone looking into optimizing and automating stuff so that it improves the operating margin, right? And the same work can be done by lesser people. Of course, it makes sense from an organization standpoint. But the point still is that the organization has people, talent as a scarce resource. If they leave, it's hard to, get them back, and it takes a huge amount of cost to refill positions in some places. The point here is, how does the organization foresee things before it actually hits them, right? So if they know that by automating in certain places is going to reduce job, are they able to see that how much a reduction of positions may happen, and then how many of those people can be reskilled? I think Ganesh makes an excellent point, is whether the organization is thinking about reskilling, is allowing opportunity to these people to move, relocate. And to Anshula's point, when old jobs get automated, when we know that how to get things done, there are newer things which occur in the organization. We are diversifying into newer areas, newer development, right? So if we have people in the organizations, right, why don't we replace them in those positions? But I would say that it requires the organization to think proactively, think about, estimate what kind of things would happen, and then make choices and decisions to make it happen, right? And of course, every organization have a natural attrition of certain percentage. You have a choice of not filling those positions to make them redundant eventually. You have some kind of a a flexibility built in your mechanism, right? And you have to leverage that. That's a strength in the organization's hand. Thanks, Sandeep.
Sarajit, just to add on to what you're saying, I can actually see this happening in our organization. I mean, this is one of the things that I see is, like, especially in legal firms, you have a lot of documentation, right? And so we've been having people who have been doing that, traditionally. A lot of documentation. Documents are one of the most important aspects in a law firm. So now that we are looking at automating all of that, now we're also looking at people who were actually busy doing that. How do they some set of people will actually be reskilled, sort of manage those systems, and the other set of people, we are looking at how do we sort of deploy them. They've been there for a long time with us. So I think that's the kind of plan is something that any of the organizations will be looking at. And just an example that I thought. In fact, also to the question which came in the chat box, I was actually looking at, I mean, if you look at, there were times when we had, before ATMs came in, there was this whole furrow, what's going to happen to all the people who are going to be, dispensing money. So everything, all set of people were actually reskilled. And there was no layoffs or whatever. So I think truly said, there are so many other kind of roles which are cropping up with the kind of disruption happening, that there's going to be enough and more work. And if you see, like the Zomatos and others, the kind of new jobs which have been created, I think it's going to be much more exciting time. It's just about reskilling and upskilling of people.
Yeah.
I totally agree. We're evolving much, much better as any other time. So I think as a planet, we should be proud of what we are achieving together.
Absolutely.
I'm very happy that we're speaking about reskilling. That's our business. So
absolutely,
interesting story. It's a bit of a funny story. We moved from horse-driven cars to motor cars to now automated cars, etc., self-driven cars, etc. Guess who lost employment? It's not the people who lost employment, but the horses who lost it, right? So for us, that is important for us, because it should be that people like us exist because we help that, or we help make that happen, right? So I think happy that this discussion is happening, and you can see me.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely, Ganesh. I think interesting conversations here around that topic. Anshula, going to just one question to you in terms of onboarding. What are the tweaks that you all made? You're primarily from that line of business, even within HR. So what is it that you all did differently, or how do you foresee things even changing in 2023, 2024 as compared to the previous years? Because we all did things differently in the last couple of years. We surely will all be doing something differently in 2023, 2024. So what is it that we can actually expect?
Interesting. So what we did, Sandeep, were 2-3 things. One, of course, like anyone else, we automated the entire process. And the second thing we did was we started connecting with people at least a month in advance before they're joining. Of course, the talent acquisition team used to be in touch with all the new joiners. They will do warm-up calls. They will check what's happening, what's not happening, what is it that they need. But there wasn't any onboarding team per se, who would actually whose core job is to actually take care of the candidate experience or the new joiner experience. So we created that for the entire organization. And we created the milestones for them in terms of what is the, fourth week to 3 to 2 to 1, and then day 0. We also extended it after 1 month. So it's a 30 plus 30 day program. So it's 30 days before they're joining and 30 days after they're joining is when we handhold, and that's a job of the onboarding team, which means that one, you deal with the anxieties of a new joiner who may or may not be joining in a physical environment. So some of them may still be joining in the virtual environment, and then they would not know where to go, who to ask, who are my colleagues, who's my boss, what are my goals, what am I expected to do in the first week? I've got my laptop, my email's not working, all of those things. So first 1 month before they join will be just to tell them what can they expect when they join. Next 1 month, when they have joined already, what are the trainings they will go through, and there are specific trainings. This is not induction training, and I think most of the organizations have gotten rid of the induction training. There are more extensive and exhaustive trainings which are happening now. So that we and we continue to. We want to now create a very, very exhaustive onboarding. A tech-driven onboarding that we want to do, right? From using the VRs to give them a virtual tour of our offices, which they can't visit in person, but they should know. We want to give them a VR experience of virtually experiencing their workstations. How will their workstation look like? What is the seating arrangement? We are on a 3-day week sort of seating arrangement. So we don't have, all the employees are not coming every day, which means that you have to identify your 3 days in a week, and you should know how to do that. All that is automated. Now, these are unheard of things. These are not the normal things. It was very easy. You walk into the office and you have a seat of your own, but that's not happening anymore. So acclimatizing a new joiner who, by the way, is not a Gen Z new joiner. The person can be a manager and above. Person can be my age, Gen X. And we haven't seen all of that. So it is difficult for us to even understand how would that happen. So we're trying to do all of that. And that's, believe me, taking a hell lot of effort from all of us, despite the fact that we have external agencies helping us. We have our internal L&D team and talent acquisition team collaborating. There are businesses which are bringing insights from the clients to us to say, what are our different clients doing and the best practices that we can imbibe. It's not easy. It's very, very complicated and very, very difficult. You're catering to diverse set of people in an environment which is so dynamic, and where the attention span is like an Insta reel, 10 seconds. 10 seconds, if you have not held the attention of a candidate, he or she is gone. Whether it is for 1 lakh more, for another brand, for an office which is 5 kilometers versus an office which is 10 kilometers, all of that put together, I think this is what we are grappling with and we are doing these days. But it's a very interesting space.
Thanks, Anshula. Great point on experience versus induction, quote unquote. But yeah. Very, very, very rightly said. Jayanthi, you had a point. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So I'm actually very tempted to remark here. Anshula, what you're saying is, so we have actually looked at all that. Looked at all of these things based on the fact that, we need to give the kind of experience. We said, okay, we put the content in place, all of that, keeping in mind that we have hybrid working 2 days a week kind of a thing. We said, whatever experience that you get in the office, you have to get it in the virtual space. Okay? So we're also looking at the techno part of it. And then we have this internal presentation as to how we're going to be doing. So the actual question is, it's not about all the content. It's not about the system. It's about what is the kind of experience you're giving. How does the person feel? So you know what? Now we've done another, we're getting into another exercise of step by step. Wherever, whether it's Bangalore, whether it is Chennai, anybody joins, or in Bombay, or Gurgaon, it has to be scripted. I mean, I know it's very, we are actually getting down to too many things, but scripting, what exactly happens? How does a person, the onboarding representative respond to the new guy? What are the kind of things the person can say? So it's about actually giving them the kind of experience and a uniform experience across. So I mean, to that extent, because everywhere we've been talking about content, the technology part, all those things can be taken care of. But how do I feel as a new joiner? That's the question which came in from the sample survey that we did internally. I want to feel good when I come into the office. Why do I want to join this firm, and why not the other firm? From hiring to retire, what is the experience that you're giving me? These are the kind of questions which is going to be having, which is actually going to be a differentiator, which is going to be a differentiator with respect to continuing with the organization and the retention part that we're talking about. And that is a micro level that we're actually working upon, from the hire to retire part of it. And also to add on that we also, when you're talking about operational efficiency, so we said, okay, fine. It's also about every small thing that we are doing in the talent space. So we said, okay, to get the operational efficiency, we have listed down n number of metrics, whether it is in hiring, whether it is in engagement, whether it is in the reward system. What are the kind of metrics that we're going to be working with? Of course, everybody has some base level, but we are adding on multiple other metrics so that we're able to track as to how we are progressing and how we are, again, boiling down to the fact, how are we going to be engaging people? How are we going to be retaining them? So these are the very aspects that I was just little tempted to respond to.
No, fantastic point, Jayanthi. And I was personally curious as well to see how it actually pans out in the law firm. So, that kind of answers. Sarajit, one quick question to you in terms of onboarding university hires and the experience associated with that, primarily because they're completely new into the market scenario, into an org culture, so on and so forth. So how would you look at it, and is there something differently that you've changed or intend on changing in this year forward?
Well, we take a little bit different approach to our onboarding. It is part of our something called employee experience, right? And employee experience starts even before the employee is onboarded, right? It's from the recruitment stage. It is even before the recruitment stage, from the time when the person is a candidate, because a person carries the impression about, where they're going to work for, right from the day one they applied for the job, right? From that time, how have we engaged the person, throughout the recruitment process? After the person is hired, what kind of experience we have provided, right? I am from I come in more from an analytics standpoint to provide evidence that, we are doing good or bad, or we have opportunity for improvement. There are other teams, of course, I am not fully involved in that, but we have something, I heard about this from others as well. So we have surveys, done, how the recruitment went to the candidate, to the managers. And of course, after the person has joined, we have onboarding survey, and which is done after a month, the person has joined. And that gives us evidence that, what is their experience, right? And whether there are, of course, opportunity for improvement. But of course, being a technology-centric firm, I think we have also adopted a lot of the technology-centric onboarding practices. I'm not privy to all the details that we have done, but of course, to provide them experience about our company, its values, and what kind of role they would play in the organization. We do all those things.
Great, that helps, Sarajit. Thank you. One question on the chat window that I'd like to address from Bhakti. As the skills are evolving, experience is taking a backseat, and how would you look at the situation? That's been the case all the time in so many ways, but I would not say experience is taking a backseat. Absolutely not. Skills always complement the experience. right? And that's a reality of our lives across professions. It's not just for one particular industry or the other. The experience that people are actually getting onto the table absolutely is the most valued for organizations. That's why we are even here having conversations about retention, because we're retaining, we look at all ways and means possible to retain that talent and that skill, because it's very unique to the individual, and the experience is very unique to that particular individual as well. Now, having said that, skills will always evolve, right? And that's the reality of our lives and of our industry, and that will have to go hand in hand with the experience. It's a lot easier for someone who's experienced to gain those skills, to actually make a difference in the market and in that role or the organization. And it makes a difference to the organization as well. You're looking at it from an ROI perspective, even for an organization. So there's no way you can do without either of those, experience as well as skills. So just one point there. And then Soham, to your point, I think we're okay. Team, what do you, sorry, Sarajit, did you have a point? Please go ahead.
Yeah, on the skills part, I would say experience is never lost. And I would like to pose a question to the team. Let's say, you know, that we are the countries are coming up with newer ways, newer kinds of fighter jets and all. Every year I see that, you know, launch of this kind of fighter jets, that kind of fighter jets, and you are the manager who has to hire people to man those, to drive those fighter jets, right? And they were not driven before by anyone. They are new. So who would you choose to fly them, right? The answer is very straightforward. Actually, you would find out, you know, who has similar experience. I mean, they flew something similar, right? Not the same, similar. So that applies. A developer who has worked in some kind of programming language which no longer exists today, right? The experience never goes. If we hire them into completely new language, newer platform, we know that that person can learn, yeah, and use the experience they have gathered, you know, in past, to know that how to do things better and how to not do things, right? And that matters everywhere.
Yeah. Now, fantastic point, Sarajit. And Sarajit, you know, leading the people analytics part of it, absolutely, you know, coming from you, and you being leading that function, that's absolutely the right point to make. Absolutely. So I just wanted to kind of go back to the team here. So do we open up for the panel, the Q&A session with the students right now, or, you know, I want to leave it to you all as well. Can we go ahead with it?
Yes, sir, we can go ahead with it.
Yeah,
Sure, sir.
Thank you, everyone. So
Right,
let's go ahead, please.
So
Right,
I thank all the panel members for sharing the wonderful and instilling insight on today's topic. At this juncture, we'd like to open the floor for questions from the batch. So I'd request anyone who has a question to please raise their hands. Right, Mayank, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
No, sir, ma'am. So my question is that as we are seeing large number of layoffs from the giant companies like Amazon, Meta, and in this environment of fear, will our traditional HR policies will work to get the good productivity from the employees?
Yeah, who would like to take that up?
I can take that up.
Sure.
Yeah, look, I think my industry, I come from an edtech industry, we've taken the brunt of this, right? We started it off and we're continuing with exits that are there. But I think the key part of this is, I mean, it stands very, very basic to what we've done before. I mean, layoffs are not anything new. When I first joined the workforce in 2001, layoffs were happening. In 2010, when I was trying to do my first switch of jobs, layoffs were happening. Now there's layoffs happening. Layoffs are not anything new, but I think one thing which is staying constant in all of this is the fact how genuinely, how clearly are you communicating to your people? Are you giving them the purpose? Are you giving them the rationale for it? Are you telling them where we head and why we do by doing or taking an adverse action? I think that's very important. And that stayed important even when we were doing it before. So I think, look, these are not new things. I mean, there are enough strategies. There is so much on the books to to tell people or to go about taking a very, very adverse decision. So layoffs are never easy. Layoffs are, I mean, there's no good way to do a layoff. So, there's no good strategy to say that you've laid off people and they're very happy about being let off, right? So, but what's important is how you communicate it to the person who's getting impacted, to the person who's not getting impacted, and what it leaves for them is that, right? So I think I've been on the other side when a couple of my, or a lot of my colleagues were laid off when my company got acquired. But what made me stick around, what made me put the belief into the organization or in my manager, was the fact that I was told what will happen right for me or what won't happen right for me. So as long as that communication comes from the top, I think it's important that you stay honest, right? So I think that's my limited point. If you're able to do that very well, I think it makes a lot of sense.
From the
like
employee
to-
standpoint also, I believe, that's the employer standpoint. And then from the employee standpoint also, I remember way back in 1998 or 2008, maybe when, or 2001 and 2008 were the time when we were actually having the layoffs, and it was just happening for the first time. And those were the traditional times, you would just have one skill, one job. So you're not actually prepared to be moving from one position to another position, and you'd be devastated when you're told that you can't continue anymore. That's not the case anymore. People have created backup plans, and I'm not saying it is easy ever for people to. It's not about just losing your job and stop getting salary from the next month onwards. It's a feeling of rejection. It's a feeling of why me. Why the company is not shutting down. It's just me who've been asked to go, which means there's something, you just start doubting yourself, right? You just start doubting your own skills, your own abilities. And that is more killing than the part that how will my kitchen run from next month onwards. And from that standpoint, I think the generation that we've raised in the last 10 years or so, and especially in the last 2 to 3 years in the pandemic times, I think people have their plan A, B, C, D, E. That's the sort of work that is happening. People are working on themselves, and they're not relying on the employers and on one job and on one skill and on one way of living. They have various other things that they do as their side hustle, as we call it. There's a term for that also, imagine. So we all have our side hustles. Sometimes they give money to you, sometimes they may not give any revenue profit to you, but you do have something to look up to. You're not looking at your 9-to-5 job all the time. So that's another evolution of the workforce of the future, which I'm super proud of.
Few other points to add. This is an excellent question, and given the current situation. So first of all, people should not. I think there is always a doubt that why am I, like Anshula mentions, but I think they should have the confidence that this is not me as a person they're laying off, right? This is organization decision, to remain, stay afloat in troubled times, right? And so it is not a performance-driven decision. They need to know, and organization needs to make it very, very clear. You are not, identified to let go because of your performance. You have been an excellent person. Some of them are high performers, but just because the organization is shutting down a unit or a line of business, these are eventual outcomes. So first of all, that. So the second thing is that organizations, I have experienced layoffs. I have been there with the organization for more than 9 years. I have seen layoff personally, and I see that organization do play a part in facilitating people getting newer jobs, right? And that is a, I would say, moral responsibility of the companies to do. And sometimes these people are excellent people, right? And third thing is that don't think that just because you are getting laid off, the organizations will be less willing to take you. Sometimes they are just waiting. They are just waiting for you to be in the market and be hired, right? Because if one company is shutting down a certain kind of business, there would be someone who is doing that business who would be willing to pick up good candidates from other companies. So, there is, of course, a level of apprehension. It's not a change that they are willing to embrace, but there is no need of a fear that would confound you, right? So, take it with the right spirit. I think that's what the organization should clarify.
Yeah, and just one more point, Mayank. I think it's one of the most difficult decisions even for employers and the leadership chain to actually go ahead and communicate that to an employee, how good or not so good that person may be, right? So it is actually one of the most difficult decisions to make, and to communicate. Having said that, most managers are the ones, and their immediate leadership chains are the ones who actually take responsibility for that. They're the ones who are actually going ahead and communicating that with employees, the reasons, so on and so forth. And the folks here are all actually, the leaders all here mention many of these points in terms of what's done and what's not. But my last points over there. Soham, can we go to the next question?
Yeah, sir. We have Harshal with the next question. Last question for today. Harshal, you can unmute yourself and ask the question, please.
Okay, so good afternoon. Good afternoon, respected panelists. So my question is, should companies have a psychometric test compulsory during interviews so that they that they know that if the other hired candidates will stay or leave in the near future?
Can I take it, Sandeep?
Please go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to take this purely from an analytic standpoint, right? See, why psychometric tests were popular more than today, and still being popular in some companies, is people want reliability of the candidate that they're hiring, right? They want to have insights on certain behavioral parameters, decision-making parameters and things like that. But we have better tools now, right, to understand the validity of the recruitment process. A recruitment done by experienced manager or a group of experienced manager can be equally good. I'm not saying that psychometry is the only, and we have less study done on the validity of the psychometric test within organizations. It may be valid, but in places where they are actually saying they have tested in research labs and all, but once we apply this in real life organizations, how valid they are, I would say that a lot of study is required to establish the validity. Now that we have a lot of experienced data science related tools to do such kind of work, right? So I would say that don't blindly depend on the psychometric tests. Don't think that psychometric test is the only way. There are ways to identify. So if you wish to know the effect of the psychometric test, because the organization and the context are different, you have to check the validity within your organizations and establish that it is giving reliable results. Because once you hire the person, you have a huge amount of data to validate what you thought the person would be. Is the person like that what you thought, right? So you have to do that. And I would say don't blindly take things which used to be taken 10 years back, 15 years back, or maybe 5 years back even.
Actually, Harshal's question may be because there are a lot of organizations still going to the technology colleges, IITs included, with the psychometric tests even now, or personality test even now. And I'll tell you, those tests are now replaced by the analytical ability, logical reasoning. Sometimes it is a simple English language, written grammar, and of course a tech test. I mean, there will be very few organizations who would actually come with a true psychometric testing, because that's a personality testing, and that is very, very tricky. Tricky from two aspects. One, it has a recency effect. You may be answering in that moment when it is not your best day, and that can impact your whole personality analysis that the test can do in that particular day. Secondly, when the person on the employer side is assessing your report, that person is not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So we don't know how to read that report. What we can do is we'll just go with the red, amber, green, which is the worst that we can do to a candidate, to look at the entire personality through a red, amber, green test result, and then sit in an interview, because we are already colored. I already know that my psychometric test is telling me that this person is not stable, probably, and so imagine where will I start my interview, and how would you do in your interview? That's nobody's guess right now. So I would say most of the organizations, Harshil, will not do this or have stopped doing it. But what you see on the campus still is more to do with the analytical ability and logical reasoning, which is good because that's exactly what we need. We want sharp people to be able to do solutioning and problem solving for the client.
Thank you, ma'am. That answers my question.
Just one suggestions. How many of them have seen a film called Moneyball? Just you go and watch the film Moneyball, which tells you they used to hire the players through analytics, through numbers. So it's not through assumption or experience or gut feeling. So just it's a Brad Pitt film, he was a just you go and see the film, you can know how to hire, how analytics play a major role in selecting a right person.
Yeah, right, Chandramohan. So, Soham, we can still take one last question, and we can get done for the day.
Yes, sir.
Sure, sir.
Yeah. Bharadwaj, you can go ahead with the question. Please unmute.
Good afternoon, panelists. So I want to ask you, how are the companies trying to protect their employees? Nowadays we are seeing different trends like quiet quitting or rage application. So employee being vulnerable to these trends that are appearing in social media. So how are the organizations trying to protect the employees from these trends and keep him at peace with the company?
Probably I'll just take on our experience, what we are doing. So I think the question that you put across is something like, what are we doing for, people sensitivity or retention indirectly? I think that's something that I understand. So one of the important things that we actually did was we did a voices exercise where we went in different batches. In fact, we just took a sampling and talked to each and every person, in groups, of course. And in fact, the leadership was also involved in that. We did one round, and then we did another batch, and then we said, let's cover everybody. It was a mammoth exercise, but we said we want to invest this time because we had actually seen a lot of people getting disengaged and things like that. And then basis that, we evolved around 7 to 8 projects. Some of the top projects that we came out was on things like workspace design. We came out with mentoring and leadership effectiveness, because we were talking about working in a hybrid mode. So how are you going to mentor your people in a hybrid setting and things like that? And then we came up with things like, top things like learning, and then reward and recognition and productivity. And there are 1 or 2 others. And that's something that we have done, like an organization. We have senior set of members in each one of these groups, and representatives of people, representation across various levels that we have. And then we are working with various actionables. So this is something that how we have responded. We started this last year. There are quite a few action points which have come in, but believe me, in the last quarter, our attrition has really come down. Maybe because it's also about giving the messaging, because one of the important values that we have is of people care and social impact. Our CSR activity, we really, sort of catapult that, because again, it's about how the firm is being, perceived by the people, and how we are reaching out to each and every person. So of course, so this is just a gist that I thought I'll share. There's a lot of traction which has gone in, and we're also seeing some kind of results coming in.
So I would like to answer this from an analytics standpoint. So of course, we have a couple of data points to know that why people leave. We have exit survey, and we have our annual, not biannual voice survey, which is employee engagement survey. And after the results of the employee engagement survey, all the managers are told about what's happening with their team, and they're encouraged to reach out to their team, think about what are the areas of improvement in the scores, and then take actions, right? When people in an organization know that their feedback is taken care of, the management is sincere about or serious about doing something about, if let's say there is a disengagement, they are more likely to stay. So and these are surveys many organizations do. But besides that, we are also trying to find out things like burnout, right? And this is a recent phenomenon that's caused by pandemic. People are working long hours. Sometimes they are not feeling well. Because they have a laptop in front of them and they are in home. They work on during the lunch hours. They work late hours and things like that, which leads to burnout, right? So we are trying to find out from the evidences we have in the data that how to recognize burnout of people. Because when people are getting burnout, they will not, many times they don't raise their hand. Of course, we encourage people to raise their hand because there is nothing wrong in saying that they're having these issues, but many times they don't. And then we are also trying to find out from the data that what are the areas, where are the segments, what kind of people are leaving more often. Is there a geography? Is there a a certain kind of a job role? Is it some kind of age group? We're trying to investigate data from various standpoint and see that, because people's priorities are different. Those people whose children are going to school, they have a different priorities than aged people versus young, Gen Z people, millennials. They have different priorities, and they have different reasons to quit, right? And we are trying to identify these kind of patterns from the data, so that before they leave, we try to identify, and then of course we try to mitigate the risk. Organizations, if they know that what is happening and what is causing it, they are more likely to take actions to prevent them than if they don't know about it.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir, for the answer. That answers my question.
I think we are done with the Q&A session for today.
Thanks a lot to
Thank you.
all the panelists for answering all the questions so patiently and eloquently. This was indeed a very insightful session, and we surely have a host of takeaways from the same. The moderator started the session on a very positive note and instilled some insightful points on Industry 4.0 and its focus on people as an important aspect of its success. The panel then took ahead the discussion by throwing light on employee behavior with respect to corporate trends after enduring the pandemic. Speakers then emphasized the importance of knowledge industry in a consulting firm and the trend of investing in people and understanding the need of individuals in wake of once-in-a-lifetime industry scenario.
Then Sandeep sir routed the discussion towards the aspirational part in terms of skilling with respect to retention, followed by the panelists enlightening the audience regarding imbibing values and purpose, especially its importance in a startup. Then the panelists also discussed the pandemic-induced change in business model as one of the challenges faced concerning employee fit, engagement, and attrition. Panelists then highlighted the root reason behind the notion of technology replacing humans in jobs as the transaction of a profession replacing another profession.
The panel then concluded by emphasizing the importance of reskilling as a bridge between the job movement in light of changing technologies, and also talked about the onboarding experience as well.
On this note, we, on the behalf of MBA at IIT Kanpur, would wholeheartedly like to thank all our speakers for sparing their valuable time and enlightening us through their ideas expressed in this session, where this topic was discussed from all possible perspectives.
As a token of gratitude, we have planted saplings at Sundarban National Park on all of your behalfs, the certificate of which we would be sharing very soon with you.
We would now like to formally conclude the session. Thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful evening ahead.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Sandeep, for moderating
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
and
everyone.
IIT
It was a
Kanpur.
wonderful
Thank
session.
you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
So